So I got the airway calculations from 3 groups. So group 1, group 4, and Owen, what's your group number? I'm calling it Owen's group.
Group 3.
You're 3. Yeah, so I'm missing it from group 2, unless that went up since 2 o'clock. I can have a look at that. So,
no, I sent it on Friday.
Oh, to me by email, was it?
No, Brightspace.
Oh.
So I wasn't the one who submitted the practice. Fat submitted the practice, I think, and I submitted our full one.
Oh, right. Okay.
Will I email it now?
Yeah, sure. Have a look at it there yourself, and we just go through. You can tell me what figures you got for your airway calculations, and then we'll just go through them. I just pulled this one up. I don't know. I can't remember who. This might have been me. It's just handy to look at. So now, so what did you get? So your group 2.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you want me to share it or
Oh yeah, why should you just tell me the values? Yeah, so the log duff, what did you get?
Scrolling for the final.
Yeah, your airwick. Yeah.
0.78.
Yeah. Okay, that agrees with those. And the campus.
Campus 1.57.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one then, the Glencullen?
1.15.
Yeah. I think others were getting 1.16. You know, so it's probably rounded. Yeah, that's fine. Just maybe group 4, I think you had 0.87. Just make sure that's probably accidentally written as 87 rather than 78. Yeah, so I think those were okay. This is just using this here. So your log duff then comes in at this moderate to poor. So that's indicating some issue there, and we know what the issue is there. It's the lack of the mayflies because of forest-mediated acidification. So even though it was getting a good high Q value and BMWP and ASPT. Now, the campus stream is getting a very high score, and here what it's demonstrating is that this metric is not appropriate to use for the campus stream, because the campus stream is on limestone. It's a system that will never be impacted by acidification. And when it's saying it's high to good, that means it's high to good, but it's not the right metric. It's high to good with respect to acidification, which is not an issue for this stream. So for this one, I suggest on your Excel spreadsheet that we'll eliminate it altogether, or else you can comment on it. It is appropriate to use on the Glencullen stream because that is it's an episodically acidic system. And it's indicating that there's no acid impact. So this metric will detect that there is an acid impact. And the only one that is suggesting that there is some potential for impact is on your log duff stream. You're getting that moderate to poor score. Okay, that's why I just wanted to mention that. So
is there some number? Is there an EQR like that would be kind of suspiciously high? You know, like so it's 1.5, which seemed very high.
No, it isn't.
Like how high up can they go?
Well, I've seen the 1.2 something. Yeah. It'll not be much higher than say 1.2, 1.3.
Okay.
Yeah. So as long as your indicators, when you get a score, it's always important to go back and just check the indicators. Sometimes if an indicator is, you might hit a patch that has a large number of a particular species, and that just tends to bump up the score. So I never just take the score and say that is the truth of it. I just go back and drill back into it and see, well, what is actually given that score? And it could be where, particularly here, look at this one, where you have lots of gamma-rays and they're sort of elevating the score. You don't have the diversity in the sample. In fact, you only have 2 tags. 3 tags are there that are giving you the score. One of which is sort of superabundant and pushing it up there. And that superabundance of the gamma-rays and lack of many other taxa is indicating an impacted system, but it's not impacted in terms of acidification. That's all that's telling you. It's not telling you that it's a good stream. So you have to pick metrics that are appropriate for the stressor you think might be impacting the system. That's always a challenge. So it's always good to sort of include a range of metrics. Now, then there's the finalized Excel spreadsheet with all the scores. And I got the sheet back from Dara's group, which I can never remember what group, that's group 4. And Dara, I've already mentioned just the small number of issues that are still there in that you need to look at. Owen, your group is fine. There's no problems with that Excel spreadsheet. It's now complete. So I have to see the Excel spreadsheet, the finalized Excel spreadsheet from the other 2, but I think one of those was fine. I can't remember which group that was. There were no problems with it. So there's just one other that I need to see, but maybe log all of the 4 Excel spreadsheets should be in that folder, and then we have everything that we need to work. Okay, that's that much. So we're getting close to writing the report.
Sorry, Mary, can I just ask one thing? Remember in our group you said one of the abundances was wrong. Which one was it again? Sorry, I was just looking over the stuff earlier.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to send it back to you. So there's 2 things. Your BMWP score, you divided it by 8 scoring taxa instead of 9.
Yeah, I fixed that part. It's just one of the abundances was wrong, I think you said that I just...
Oh, right, okay. For the Glencullen stream, the abundances of your percentage abundance of your class C, it's not right. And also your BMWP score is 10 too high because you give scores to 2 members of the heptagene. So yeah. I think your BMWP... Yeah.
I fixed the BMWP. I just couldn't remember which of the ones had the too high of abundance. Okay, so there's with the C of abundance.
The class C, yeah. So you can come back to me on that when you calculate a class C, and I'll check. Yeah, that one was wrong. From what I remember, I don't have it in front of me here. And I said Owen's group was fine. So template then. This is on Brightspace. I make it visible. So this is sort of the template for the report, the group report that you're going to do, and you're going to do an individual abstract. So we have the usual report structure. I'll go down through it. So you can sort of take this and populate it. So general points then on the fund. Normally I use Calibri, so 12 points. The figures in the graphs and tables can be smaller, but not the legends. Keep the legends at 12 points so I can read them. 1.5 line spacing, but the line spacing for figure and table legends should be single line spacing, so tighten it up. So for figure table, figure and table type. All right. Okay, paragraph spacing, just enough to separate the paragraphs. Species names in italics, but not the authority. Good practice to give the authority when the species is first mentioned. Common names should not be placed in italics, or common names should not be in capital letters. Check for typos, grammatical errors. Treat data as plural. Just get into the habit of that. Use the term taxon, I think. So you'll be talking about taxon richness rather than species richness, because you weren't identifying to species level. And then there's just, and number the pages from the introduction. Okay, so you have a cover page, specified title, you can vary that. The abstract, we don't want it in the group report, but every individual has to submit an abstract. And an abstract is a summary of what has happened or what's contained in the report. So it should state clearly and briefly the objective of your work, the approach used, key finding and conclusions, and if there's any recommendations. And it shouldn't include any ideas or information that are not in the main report. And again, ideally that shouldn't exceed 1 page, but it doesn't mean that it has to be a quarter of a page. Have enough information. If you follow those 4 items that I've just mentioned, there, the objectives, the approach, the findings, and the conclusions. That's what should contain. So if I read the abstract, I should know what the report was about and what to find out. Okay, table of contents and the introduction. I mean, it sort of sets the scene for the report, should introduce the word, maybe a statement of what's under investigation. So in your case, you're undertaking an investigation of water quality at several rivers and counties Wicklow and Dublin using mainly, so I would say here, mainly biological assessment based on invertebrates, but maybe deploying, these are my words, not yours, you can change them, water chemistry. Chemistry data to highlight what as it might be causing problems. Okay. And it might be useful to include why a combined approach is useful. Maybe the suitability of invertebrates as indicators, and add references to anything you write. So maybe about a half a page of an introduction. So justify why this is bioassessment, why it's useful, it gives you prevailing water quality, and you're going to use then any chemistry that's available to maybe highlight what might be causing problems if you detect problems. Now, study area then is describe the location of the site and a map. You can cite characteristics referring to table 1. So maybe picking out the key characteristics. So you have a table that looks something like that there. So what you'd say is that, you know, these are all relatively small streams. Maximum width is 14.5 meters in the Glencullen. There are systems that are largely dominated by either riffle or glide or whatever type of habitat. So some description referring to table 1. But don't make it highly repetitive text that's, you know, stating the same thing, you know. So I don't want to hear that the Glencullen River is 10 meters wide and X meters deep, and the Lug Duff is X meters wide and X meters deep. Try and sort of synthesize that information so that if I read that, I get a sense of what these rivers look like. So it might mean that, you know, 2 of the rivers are dominated by riffle habitat and some run habitat, whereas the campus stream is predominantly, I think it was predominantly glide habitat. And, you know, again, the Glencullen, Lug Duff, their coarse substrate systems, mainly cobble, boulder. Whereas if you go down to the campus stream, lower proportions of cobble and gravel, and heavily silted system. So leave you to write there. Methods then, and I'm going to cover them sort of in the sampling methods in just a moment. Always write both the methods and the results in past tense. Samples were collected. Now, since you haven't done this, I'm going to have to tell you how it was done. So you'll collect the samples, and I'll show you the methods in just a moment. But in the laboratory, then the samples are generally sieved through a 500. It's written there, so I'll be putting this up for you anyway. 500 micron sieve, and then sorted on a white illuminated tray. And the level of identification will say the samples identified to predominantly family level, with the exception of the Batis, where Batis rhodani has to be distinguished because it's one of the specific indicators in the Q-value system. Next, then, you write a paragraph explaining how the metrics were calculated. You know, a sentence or two. So if you take your Q-value, it's based on a 5-point scale, Q1 to Q5, with intermediate values, so there's 9 points on it. So the invertebrates are divided into 5 sensitivity groups, and the Q-value is calculated on the basis of the percentage representation of each of those groups in the sample. That's how you explain it. And then the same with your BNWP. If you're calculating EPT metrics, you'll need to explain how those were calculated, and so on, with references, if possible. Now, results, right in the past tense. So with the results, I would recommend you start with taxon richness, then abundance, then you do your biotic indices, and then you do your EPT, and then the AWIC. Or in fact, the other way around it there. So taxon richness, abundance, EPTs, biotic indices, AWIC, particularly the AWIC for the logged off site, but you could also include the Glencoe, or you can include, because it is site. Show the results in a table or a graph, not both. When you're putting titles on tables and graphs, the title of the table is placed above the table. The title of the graph is placed underneath it. Also important that you start all of these sections with text, not with a table or a figure. So the tables and figures should appear after you have written about them, so that I don't have to flick back up to find them. So that is that one. Now here's the tables. So I've sort of set it out here for you. So just mark on it. Should be numbered and referenced as table 1, etc. in the text. Table, as I said, should be above it. So here's a table then for filling out. You're going to transfer your metrics in there. I always like to avoid as many lines on the table as possible, so I've sort of grouped the metrics here. And these are all relevant to Q value, then BMWP, ASP, and AWIC is down there. But I'm open to any other suggestions that you might have on that. Okay, figures then, numbered and referenced. So you've got them as a fig dot or figure in full, doesn't matter. Captions placed below the figures. Now, the importance also applies to tables, as the caption should contain enough information to allow the reader to understand content without reference to the main text. If you're doing graphs, they should be adequately labeled on both axes. And again, not too many lines on it. Okay. That you won't have done yet, so that's gone for the moment. I'll update this. So the discussion now, this is where you are interpreting the results. So when it comes to the results section, don't interpret. You only interpret or reference you can make if you're using chemistry is to exceedances of thresholds, but that's not going to be too relevant here. Before you write there's a number of ways that you can do it. You can summarize the findings for each river. So what's your conclusion for each river? And then maybe when you've done the first, maybe move on to the next one, sort of in contrast, a certain river. Or you can start it off by saying that of the 3 rivers sites examined, only one was considered to be unimpacted. That's your plain column. And then describe the other 2 and what it's suggesting about the other 2. And there's where it might be useful to bring in the chemistry data. So rather than the chemistry data appearing in the text because you don't have the data, you could refer to available chemistry data when you get it, but that won't be available for the draft. So you're going to do this in draft form first of all. And so that's that. Now, the final thing then I give you is just about citation and referencing. And just some examples. I know you've done this for your essays already, just to recap. So if you're making a general statement and you want to support it, the references there go at the end. If you want to open up a sentence with a particular reference, then it sits like that. And use et al. For more than 2 authors. The first name of the author should never be included. And then I've just shown you how to lay out the references. So you have it's Harvard style. I just formatted a little bit better than I've done there. Now, you don't have to see the comma that I have after evidence there. You don't have to you don't put a comma in there, it doesn't matter. You instead of the semicolon, you'd use a comma there instead. And if you're using the comma, you see I've done it there and I haven't done it here. If I'm putting in a comma, I'll put it in there and I put in a comma there as well. So just to be
I'm not sure.
Say that again?
I think your screen might be frozen. I'm not sure if it's just for me.
Oh, right. What does anybody see?
I see discussion and conclusions, but I'm not sure about the rest.
Oh, right. You haven't moved on to the references.
Mine has moved.
Yeah, I can see the references.
I can see references.
Maybe it's late. It could be my internet.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anyway, I'll be putting it up, so there's no problem.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Right. So that's it. I can't remember the date that the draft has to be in. I think I can look it up later on. You can have a look. I'll send you a reminder. Right. So just in relation to that, to cover sampling methods. I don't think I've covered this with you. And what's appropriate here. So just to remind you then, these terms that you probably are familiar with, but I want to relate them to invertebrate sampling methods is what I'm dealing with here. So if a sampling method is qualitative, there's no estimate of abundance per unit area. If it's quantitative, you have an estimate of abundance per unit area. What I mean by that, you can express say numbers per meter squared. If something is semi-quantitative, you have an estimate of what we call relative abundance. And what that means is that you can compare abundances between sites, but it's not absolute abundance, and you can only compare them between sites if the same semi-quantitative sampling method was used. Again, I pop this up onto Brightspace and you can have a look at it. Okay, so for invertebrates, the method we use is kick sampling. What you're looking at there is kick sampling in a riffle area because you have the turbulent water, and that's where originally all kick sampling was done, was in the riffle area, because that is the area that is so it's well aerated, and if you get an impact in that area, it certainly indicates problems with oxygen. Right. Now, just go back here. I'll stay with kick sampling for a moment. Nowadays, we generally take samples, kick samples from all of the mesohabitats, so the river, the pool, the glide, and ours. So those including the margins. And this is known as multi-habitat kick sampling. And all of the habitats are sampled in proportion to their occurrence along the length of your study area. So what you do in effect is you take your study area, your stretch of stream, which is typically between 30 and 50 meters in length, and you estimate the cover of riffle, run, pool, glide in that. So you'll say, okay, 20% of it is, 50% is riffle, run, 20% is glide and run, and so on. And then you apportion that to what is typically a 2-minute kick sample. That's what the EPA use. So 2-minute kick sample. And so, for example, if that reach of river was 50% riffle, you would spend half of the time kicking in the riffle habitat, so that you would spend 1 minute of your 2 minutes kicking in the riffle habitat. And then you apportion the rest for that. So that's the first thing that's done, is that you do a habitat survey, and that informs how much time you spend in each of the mesohabitats. We call them mesohabitats rather than microhabitats. And that's known as multi-habitat kick sampling. Kick sampling is semi-quantitative. So in this study, the sampling method was multi-habitat kick sampling, where the time spent in each mesohabitat was in proportion to its occurrence.
Mary, you've frozen. Hello?
Yeah, I lost her too.
Okay. I don't think she's here currently. I think she's probably like disconnected or something.
Yeah, I think she's gone.
I've just noticed I've been made host.
Maybe you should teach us.
No, I'm
Yeah,
just
I
saying,
saw
like,
that-
maybe she can't get back in because doesn't she have to let us in or something like that?
No, I think it's going to be okay. I think when she comes back in, she'll be made the host again.
Okay, no, I was just worried. It was like, oh, you've been made host, and now she can't get in until I have no idea how I would do that.
My
Even if that
sister's,
was to happen, you'd get a notification like you'd
Yeah,
come
Because
up.
all of a sudden I have like the ability to record. I have security. I've got like closed captions and all this stuff. I was like, I just like move my mouse and like, wait a second, I've got everything. What's I got on?
But yeah,
my
even
sister
if
is
you
a
did-
primary teacher, and she said she has senior infants, and they've the Zooms, and sometimes the teacher gets kicked off, and then one of the kids just randomly gets to be the host and can like mute everyone, and sounds very funny.
I wonder has she not even realized that she's like gone? Like, you know, she's being disconnected, but she's like all her faces are still there, so she's just talking to an empty void.
Yeah, she might be doing that for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be when she goes to ask a question and no one responds.
Have any of you started this thing for Sunday? The essay? No?
I only noticed that that's due
No.
for Sunday. I'm like, wait a second, that's due for Sunday. I thought it was due for next week. Like, I thought it was due for next Friday.
I had forgotten
Essay?
about it entirely.
The policy brief.
quiz.
Not this
Okay.
Friday. I meant like, you know, like I thought it was due for like the 27th or 25th or something like that. No, it's actually due for the 21st. I'm like, oh, I need to figure out how to do that.
Hmm.
I mean, it's only a single page, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, it can't be that bad. Would it being that short? And only like
Only a
5
single
references.
page. Okay.
And I always thought the whole thing is like you make a page and then you can like everything is on a page and references is a separate thing, so your references be on a second page, but you have to fill up your first page with actually your 5 points, and then on your second page, which is not actually counted towards the one with all your references.
Yeah, I reckon so.
Should we like email her?
Yeah, I wonder if like her internet's fully gone.
Oh, maybe like her
she'll be
internet
able to get
entirely
back
died.
on. Yeah.
Because isn't she? I think she said she was doing this from home. Like I think she was normally in the college, so maybe her internet just died.
Yeah. Didn't she say before that one of the days her internet was fully gone? And
Yeah, she had to go to her friend's house.
yeah. So maybe we're done for the day.
I've got other stuff to do. So if it turns out she goes like, oh, by the way, yeah, I'll just send an email with all the rest of the information. You guys can go. I'm like, oh, good. I can do other things.
Mm.
That's- I've gained the power to even make hosts. I just realized. I've never actually been a host in a Zoom. I've always had like joined other people's Zooms. I'm like, I've never actually seen all of the tools. I'm like, hey, this is all you can do all this stuff. Why would I ever need this? As well as like if you're actually teaching, they're kind of good. But it's just like not a teacher.
She just sent an email saying my internet connection went down. I am back on Zoom, but she's not.
And no, she's not.
You might get something there just to say you're allowing her back in the meeting.
I see nothing. Where will that be? Will that be on like the bottom of the screen somewhere?
It'll pop up. You'll notice it.
Yeah, but I think I was talking to her earlier. My Zoom is kind of glitched out a bit, where like everyone can see like, can you see like my full face?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only see half my face.
She's sorry, I was out of the room, but she's just sent an email now saying she's back on Zoom.
Yeah, we saw it.
Okay.
I
Dara,
wonder if you want
have it
them even.
on full screen, Dara.
I'm not on full screen now.
Maybe
on
turn
half.
it on full screen and just turn your Zoom on full screen and see if there's a notification.
No.
Hmm.
Maybe
You might have to invite her back.
if you look at participants at the bottom.
Yeah, I have that open, but she's not there. There's like invite, mute all, and 3 dots, which is.
Maybe if we all leave and come back, it might work.
Yeah, maybe she's sitting on her own somewhere, waiting for us.
I mean, we could always just send her an email saying like we're all in a Zoom call together and you're not here.
Well, you can invite her. So there's a number and there's a passcode. So if we email her that, she can get back in. Do you see
I just clicks the invite button. It says like invite via email. I'm sorry, I have no idea what I'm doing.
So where it says invite email, but when you open up that, it'll have a number up at the top. That's the meeting number and then a passcode.
Oh, like 638664841. Yeah. I think everyone's leaving because everyone's just like, yeah, we're not going to deal with this. Oh wait, I think we just got another email. No. Leave and come back in. She's there. Okay, so everyone just leave.
Oh, okay.